We're live.
Yeah.
I got the green bar.
So we are live now, and let's get the links sent out.
Yes.
Um, so in the bottom right-hand corner, it says links. You can just go ahead and click on that. It'll give you a chance to copy and paste, and then you can send it out from there.
I don't have that.
Oh, then I'm going to send it to you. Uh, sending it in chat. It has been chatted.
All right. Dissent.
Send it to Mark.
All right. Perfect. All right. That's tweeted. About to start periscoping.
Oh man, this is really going live. We're
Yeah.
doubling down. Are we going to throw this into Facebook as well?
I think we're ready. We've got folks now through Twitter. We've got my Periscope audience. I want to thank everybody for showing up via Periscope. You guys are going to see me at a different angle. You can go to Twitter if you guys want to see the full thing. We're joined by one of my friends, Devin Wills, and he's going to be co-hosting this show with me. In fact, he's going to be doing most of the work. It's going to be my job to show up every Sunday and kind of talk about the issues and encourage dissent. That's the hashtag we're using. And also we got Giuseppe Cucci, who is producing for us, and we'll be switching the angles. But with that, thanks for joining me, Periscope. Thanks for joining me, Twitter, and everybody on Google Hangout. I'll let Devin kick us off.
All right, thank you for joining us today. This is the almost like the beta of the beta. It is the first episode that we're attempting to stream live. There's a lot of different connectivity throughout this. Like you're saying, you got Periscope, we've got Twitter, we've got all these different things. If you have any questions or want to reach out about anything, be sure to hashtag Dissent, D-I-S-S-E-N-T. If you're wondering who this Devin Wills guy is, that occasionally comments on what Ollie's doing on Twitter, or sometimes follows him around, for conventions or conferences. Lifelong friend of Ollie's, been around for about 17 years. Met each other at church, and when we're not talking about our history, I'm childhood friends. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. So it's always exciting to see what he's doing and seeing where we're growing, intellectually growing, just in a way that we're challenging the status quo. Oftentimes we get tired of the same old thing coming out of the mainstream media, the same old thing coming from millennials. I'm only in my 20s, and I talk to people on a regular basis that, their opinions are drawn from a 4-second or 40-second clip off of BuzzFeed or the Now This videos and things like that they've seen on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and they draw these mass opinions about these very important items, these very important subjects, and I get tired of seeing that happen time and time again because they don't look into it. They don't see the core value of what's going on, and that's one thing. Ollie and I, we carry on conversation after conversation. Probably 2 hours a day almost. As soon as I get off work, we're on the phone talking about ideas, talking about the movement, talking about starting something, creating something new, and that's what's led us here. So, Ollie?
Yeah, I think, and all you fellas and ladies out there, he's taken and he's married, so he's off market, and he's only got one bro to call after work, so I'm going to hog all that time. But I think it says I am green, Giuseppe, so maybe it is presenting. I don't know. But today what you're going to watch is two friends have a conversation about today's topics. We're going to rely some on my expertise inside of politics. I've been doing this for 9.5 years professionally. But more than that, we are all equals, in this republic, in the eyes of God, and just people talking. So what we want to do is engage with y'all, our audience. We want to migrate on these issues together. And Philip, if you would stop texting me while I'm live, that would be freaking great. But I think that what we want to do is encourage people of all political stripes to start banding together and build a new majority together, because I think what we're seeing is, both sides. I even hate that we attribute both sides, because these two sides probably make up 5 to 10% of the total population. There's a majority of us who are hungry for answers, solutions, who are tired of the PC crap, but we're also tired of the power brokers. We're tired of the oligarchy that's forming around us. We're tired as conservatives of defending a system that we thought was capitalist that's not. And liberals are tired of the increasing authoritarianism that's being pushed on them by progressives. And I think that together we can build a majority. So this podcast is going to be very mission-oriented. It's going to encourage dissent. It's going to encourage intellectual thought. It's going to encourage tolerance. And it's going to encourage that we challenge the elite. That includes our banking institutions, our media, and our political power brokers. And we're going to go on a journey together. I'm not going to have all the answers as a seasoned political consultant, and Devin's not going to have all the answers as my go-to sidekick and somebody who grew up in a very, very Christian Southern Baptist home. What we are going to do is we're going to have the questions. We're going to ask them together, and we're going to go bravely into that future with the hashtag dissent, and we're going to encourage a conversation. We're going to talk about race. We're going to use the word nigger. We're going to talk about feminism. We're going to talk about the role of faith, the state, and the church. And we're going to have a conversation that America's been saying it wants to have and never seems to have. We're going to finally have that conversation. Our careers and our reputations are going to be on the line. But I think that now maybe 50 of y'all across Periscope and Google Hangouts and Twitter watching, and Google Hangouts, I think that together we will be the first 50 people who form the first 50 million people here in a year or two, because we're going to encourage, I don't even call it a bipartisan, I'm just going to call it a people's populist movement of folks who are so fed up with the status quo, so fed up with the shooting, so fed up with which facts we quote and don't quote. And we're going to do something together. We're going to forge forward together. So, Devin, what are our first topics, man?
First topics, well, I definitely wanted to see what your opinion was about the DNC. I know that the mainstream media definitely presented unity and just this happy-go-lucky, everybody for Hillary kind of mindset. And from the things that I was seeing on Twitter and things that I was seeing on Facebook, that definitely didn't seem to be the case. So I just wanted your opinion, and then I kind of wanted to see what your opinion was from the RNC compared to the DNC, because everybody was talking about, the roll call that started off the RNC. Everybody was saying that, it's going to be this crap fest that, is going to be crazy. And then, when you watch the DNC, it didn't even seem like it held a candle to what happened to the DNC.
Yeah, so I think that both conventions defied expectations in that we were expecting somewhere between 10 and 30,000 protesters. We now live in the age of permanent protests between Black Lives Matter and the offshoots of Acorn and Occupy. So when we got to the RNC, and one day they had maybe a demonstration of 1,000 or 1,500 people, and then all days after that it was less than 110 people, we were kind of shocked. If Donald Trump is supposed to be this neo-Nazi, fascist, hater, crap talker, if that's supposed to be the case, and we were in Cuyahoga County, which is very liberal, very black county of Ohio, people kept asking, like, where are the protesters? And in fact, there was a clip that went viral where I was asking, where are the blacks? Where are the blacks? And, it was a spontaneous moment. I didn't plan for it. But so the RNC was underwhelming with the protests. The highlight of it was Ted Cruz saying vote your conscience, which apparently ticked off a lot of the people who support Donald Trump. And it really was Trump's convention. It wasn't a GOP convention. And this was my third consecutive Republican National Convention, so I can say that with some authority. The DNC was also the opposite. Instead of the Clinton machine working and operating and totally having a tamper on everything, There were over 5,000 protesters throughout the city on Monday. I couldn't keep up with the protests. Honestly, I had a lot more fun there, Devin. I was wearing jeans. I was wearing my Jordan trainer shoes, and I was wearing a black shirt every day. And my goal was just to get good footage. My goal was to engage with socialists, communists. There was anarchists. There were union thugs. There was Black Lives Matter. My goal was to engage and see how authentic these people were. How many of them were going to be voting for Hillary Clinton? Could Jill Stein create a movement inside of this? What was the chaos like and the logistics like inside the convention? And, you know, I'm a co-founder of the Tea Party movement. I've seen a lot of strange things in my career of 9 years in politics, but I've never seen anything like the Democratic National Convention. There were protests, and these weren't just guests or people who broke into conventions. These were delegates on the floor 50 feet from Hillary Clinton making homemade signs that the media refused to show, saying no oligarchy, crossing out the fighting for us and putting fighting for herself. I mean, there was an organic effort to, even after she was nominated and after she accepted and became the legal nominee of the Democratic Party, to say, we're not voting for you. And I mean, it was absolutely incredible. And most of the media ignored it. In fact, Politico ran a story saying how she successfully got out of the conventions relatively unscathed. That's the entire opposite. Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, has a huge following, was hugely popular at the Democratic convention. And I think that if I don't know if Jill Stein will get in the debates or not. She needs to pull 15%. But if she does, Hillary will totally collapse. And the same can't be said for Gary Johnson against Donald Trump, because Gary Johnson is so not a libertarian. I mean, he's got the worst qualities of a libertarian and the worst qualities of a Republican, and you know, he can't seem to patch things together. So it's really fascinating to watch the whole dynamics of our country going on right now. But I don't know. Both conventions were exactly the opposite of what they were supposed to be. The Republicans pulled off they got away with a convention that was successful, and the Democrats got away with a more fun convention. And I was on the floor for history, but it didn't feel like history as she was being shouted down. 100% of, or not I shouldn't say it. One of the chants were organic on the floor. The rest weren't. So it was absolutely a spoiled moment for her, and she knew it, and you could feel the tension that she had with the crowd. She just had to suffer through it. And she had less people tune in for her speech than Donald Trump's, which is remarkable considering the other nights the Democrats had more people who tuned in for their convention than the Democrats. So this is a pure repudiation of Hillary Clinton, and I don't know how the media can say otherwise.
Yeah, definitely understand that. It's funny, you know, as soon as the convention ended, you know, instead of really talking about the historical landmark of the first female nominee for president, you know, there's all these jokes about balloons, with Bill Clinton being super excited about all these balloons and all these gaffes and memes that came out about it. It was pretty funny to see all the interaction. It was like, who cares about her being the nominee? It's like Bill Clinton loved him some balloons. I mean, come on. But yeah, when you were at the DNC, you know, how receptive were people to your conservative values or what you had to present to them as far as, you know, the dialogue there? I saw that you carried on a few conversations with some of the protesters. Who would listen and kind of respond and try to grow in that conversation, and who would just totally shut you out and you know, even get aggressive?
You know, it was interesting. I left Philadelphia with a friend who's an anarchist and a friend who is a major organizer with the left in Occupy. And after just a couple of beers, not too many, and a lot of conversation and dialogue, they discovered, oh, conservatives absolutely care about poverty. Oh, conservatives aren't heartless. Oh, conservatives aren't always trying to push their religion, you know, on us. And it was good. I mean, it was just like, let's work together on criminal justice reform. Let's work together on crippling Wall Street. Let's work together on realigning our moral and societal priorities. You know, there's this sense that from the left that Donald Trump did do something, and that was he broke half the establishment. And the left knows that they did not pull their part, and so they're trying to pull their part, not necessarily because they agree with the ends of it, but they're looking for a fight on a level playing field, and they know they don't have that with Hillary Clinton. That Hillary Clinton represents much of the same cronyism, more wars, triangulation, and an uncertain tax policy, one that promises blacks and single moms and the poor people a lot, and then they get nothing. Even though they might blame her compromising with Republicans, they put that blame at her. So it was fascinating to get their perspective, but I left with more friends than I started with, and I was grateful for that because at the end of the day, we're all Americans, and we're humans. We're brothers and sisters. And, they kept saying, "Ollie, you're so ruthless with your enemies." They looked me up on Twitter, and they looked at how I dealt with some of the people who were telling me to shove off in some of these protests. And I said, yes, but everybody deserves a chance at redemption. I believe that. And who am I to judge? So if I can partner together with you on something, we can go to war later on something else. And they really could see my heart's intent was pure. And I think that that's a place where we all could start.
Yeah, I often wondered how big of a role the email leak of the DNC from WikiLeaks. I often wonder how significant was that right before the convention. Was there a lot of talk about that from the Bernie camp? I did see all the supporters. They were. I watched the James O'Keefe video, and they were all just like, screaming about how Hillary stole the actual election. She stole the nomination. And they even got physical with him by ripping his sign out of his hand, throwing him on the ground, all of that. Was there a lot of talk about the email scandal? Or pardon?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of talk. Even at one point during her speech, a giant WikiLeaks banner pops up in between the Oklahoma and California delegations.
Stuff you don't see on CNN or MSNBC or anything like that, right?
You just see Wolf Blitzer dancing with his little wine glass and Pinot Grigio or something. I don't know what he was drinking. I don't drink white wine, but unless it's with Jennifer.
Oh man.
And yeah, I mean, there was a lot of talk of WikiLeaks. I think that Julian Assange has repopularized himself, and I think that it confirmed what conspiracy theories were out there. And everyone was making fun of the Bernie Sanders, saying it's not rigged, y'all are just going to lose. And they were going to lose. I mean, Bernie did not run a serious enough campaign, and honestly, he appealed to a lot of white people. Inside of a Democratic primary, that was never going to happen. But it did show that still, even with her barely victory, the DNC was putting its thumbs on the scales. It was inappropriate. It might be against the law. And the Bernie Sanders folks, that's why they're so rampant. They may have accepted defeat, but now that they know that they weren't in a fair fight, they're not accepting defeat. They will let the shit burn defeat. And most of the people I talked to were not going to vote for Hillary in the fall. And some in some swing states, they did say, well, at the end of the day, I'm a Democrat. So I talked to a voter out of North Carolina and a voter out of Indiana who both said, I'm going to protest her until I vote for her. But still, that will create an enthusiasm gap. That will reduce volunteer hours. That's going to have real consequences for Hillary Clinton.
I got you. It was very funny. I'm late to watching House of Cards season 4. I binged watched the first 2 seasons. Third season I binged watched as well. Just the first 2 seasons were together, and it took a lot of my time away from things that were probably more important. So I was like, you know what? I'll wait on season 4. And it just so happened that as I was watching this season, they were going to the DNC in the actual show, and it was all, they're twisting the votes, they're changing the narrative, they're getting out in front of the story. And as I'm watching this on a Netflix, TV show, it's actually happening in real life. I mean, it was the parallel there was like, okay, am I living in a TV show? Because this is absurd. This is ridiculous. I can't believe that it could be so cut and dry in that scenario. So, but Yeah, moving forward, as far as the DNC, what do you think Donald Trump's going to have to do in order to overcome any sort of push he might have gotten post DNC?
Stop being himself.
Like withdraw? No, I'm just kidding.
I think that Donald Trump has real psychological and mental predispositions that lead him to constantly find himself in a fighting fetal position. But let there be no doubt, though he's swinging and he calls himself a counterpuncher, he's still in the fetal position because he is being dictated to how the narrative will be. And we saw this when he was criticizing the Hispanic federal judge. No one liked that. Newt Gingrich called him out, which was one of his most powerful allies at the time, and he was the second pick for vice president. It's bizarre to watch some of this stuff take place. Donald Trump wants to have every fight in public. He wants to respond to everything. And if you read The Art of War, which, he rifted his title, The Art of the Deal, from Sun Tzu's Art of War, I mean, it's just bad strategy. It's bad tactics. It's not adult. And for Americans, it's unbecoming of anybody who's running for president. So Donald Trump is imploding at this point. I mean, it's not even just a self-inflicted wound. He's to the point where he's imploding. We find ourselves losing constantly news cycles, which are hard enough to get for conservatives, right-leaning Americans, or Republicans. He cedes them away. When the IG report came out from the State Department that showed that she had broken State Department rules, which the State Department tried to cover up, Hillary Clinton tried to cover up, her campaign covered up, the media covered up. It took an inspector general saying that she violated the rules of the State Department while she was the head of it. He tossed that away while about defending himself about Trump University. I mean, it had nothing to do with the election. So here we again find ourselves in the wake of the DNC leaks, Debbie Wasserman Schultz joining her campaign, which could actually reinforce the corruption, could reinforce the cronyism, could reinforce the Clinton years that no one wants to go back through. Everyone loves the prosperity of the Clinton years, but no one enjoyed the scandals, the cronyism, the brothers and podunk hillbillies from Arkansas being paid off to do different tasks. I mean,
oftentimes whenever I'm part of like a live chat or a live news feed or anything like that on Facebook or Twitter, I always ask, is Vince Foster watching? Is he around? So I thought I'd go ahead and throw that out there just for sake of this discussion.
Yeah, and I was at DNC and I saw Sidney Blumenthal, who's a controversial figure that folks should Google. Was walking around like he was the king of the earth. He's Hillary Clinton's best friend. He'll be the closest ally to the potential president. And, the idea that a man like him is going to have carte blanche over all policies. He advised her during Benghazi, and he has no foreign policy expertise, no foreign experience. And there was gun running. So we have to assume that he was shared with, he was given classified material. The idea that someone like him is going to be running her opinions and being vetted with the president is absolutely scary. It is what the Bernie folks are saying. It's turning into an oligarchy, and it's unbecoming of America. And Donald Trump only aids that when he acts childish. He only aids that when he shows no discipline. This isn't just bashing the political correct thing, because people, you can do that, and you can actually do that relatively easy. All you have to do is say what comes to your head, or say what truth is real that's not being said or that is being censored. But to say absolutely everything that you're feeling, not just thinking but feeling, that's just childish.
Yeah. And what's sad, what I've noticed throughout this cycle is that the speech he gave to conclude and close out the RNC was pretty spot on. I found myself actually agreeing with a lot of the intricate parts that he was mentioning, and that the fact he got into details. A gentleman that I know, he actually serves in the military. He's a libertarian. He posted something on Facebook the other day, and it was just very direct as far as his I guess his distaste for how these people were acting. He was pretty much saying, he was bringing up the speech back in, I want to say, November or December of last year, whenever Donald Trump straight up was like, we need to ban all Muslims and all that. He just went off on that kind of tirade. And whenever it came to the RNC speech, he gave some details about how it was, specifically, countries that were vulnerable to ISIS infiltration, things like that. And it's so sad that he can make such great strides in one or two speeches, but the things that he said off the cuff, just things that have come to his attention or through emotion, those overshadow progress that he's made these latest 8-9 months ago. And people are still talking about it. They're looking at a 40-second clip and not looking at the 45-minute speech that he made at the RNC. But how do you think he's going to handle this situation with Mr. Khan? He lost his son back in the Iraq War. How do you think he's going to be able to handle this? At this point, I hear he's pretty much dropped the ball. I'm not as read up on it as I am most of the other things we've been talking about, but
I stood there on the DNC floor right behind the Illinois delegation. So I was, a good 75 feet from Hillary Clinton and the podium and Mr. Khan while he spoke. And I'm not going to lie, I'm half Arab, half black. I face discrimination on a weekly basis.
If not a daily basis, via Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter. But, I know what it's like to be scared, and I know what it's like to have to suffer rhetoric that can lead to consequences. That being said, I am a very vocal opponent of Islam. I am a very vocal opponent of terrorism and jihad. I am a very, I have a commenter here saying Mr. Khan is pro-Muslim Brotherhood and supports Sharia. That really doesn't matter. The values that he exclaimed were tearing me up to the point where I had to control my nose and my eyes. I thought I was going to break out in the baby cry, just snot everywhere and tears everywhere. And it was a very moving speech. It was a very authentic speech. And I mourn the loss of Captain Khan, and I appreciate his family's sacrifice. What I don't appreciate is the DNC, and I understand that there is a place for tragedy in public discourse. There is a place for tragedy inside of politics. So I won't bemoan it. It has to happen. What I will bemoan is that the DNC then started booking Mr. Khan on Sunday shows and other shows. That seemed a little bit inappropriate and crass. And Donald Trump, who's extremely savvy, probably the most savvy nominee with the media, maybe even more savvy than Ronald Reagan, complimented the Khan and recognized their sacrifices, and then he attacked them. And that, I do think that he needs to respond, but on the policy initiatives, and it could have been very easy. The Khans have suffered an immeasurable loss in losing their son. I can't imagine what it would be like to lose Donald Jr. or Ivanka or Eric or Tiffany or whatever the youngest child's name is. And, however, the policies that I'm championing, the policies that say that I cannot afford for 500,000 or any or one Syrian who cannot be unvetted to enter here have nothing to do with their tragic son's death. None of my policies that I exclaim would have saved or killed their son. What we can do is we can have less wars, and Hillary Clinton is a warmonger. What we can have is hold public officials accountable for situations like Benghazi or lying to Gold Star families after that. And that's what Hillary Clinton does, and I would never do that as president. What we can have is a public discourse which recognizes that we can not let in immigrants that cannot be vetted while loving and embracing and having an open door, a beautiful door in front of that beautiful wall. That's what he That's what he should have said. He would have killed it, nailed it, owned it. But Donald Trump's not capable of that, and we have to accept that. Worse, he doesn't surround himself with advisors who are capable of that. So we're in a situation where we're going to be all weak. And Mr. Khan has made some troubling remarks in the past. In my opinion, he has said that jihadism isn't real Islam, and that's stupid. That's really stupid. It's in the Quran. It's a part of Islam. Yeah. So if it's Mr. Khan's position that the Quran isn't Islamic, then maybe he has a problem understanding the issues facing his religion, and I don't, and Donald Trump doesn't. But he's also called on moderates, and rightfully so, to chastise the radicals in their religion. Now, I don't care what adjective you put before them. To me, all I care about is the effect, and I think that will lead to less terror, less sympathizers, less Sharia, and less jihadism. And that's what I'm about. So I think that, I think that there's multiple bad actors, the media being chief among them, but Donald Trump, I won't endorse what he said. I won't support what he said. I think that, the things that Mr. Khan is wrong about, Donald Trump didn't target. So Donald Trump has done nothing right in this situation. But that certainly doesn't make Mr. Khan or the DNC promoting him around angels. It's a complex situation, and we've got to learn how to handle these, especially since we keep having complex situations like George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, both idiots engaged in a situation where one of them was going to lose their lives, and it was a justifiable killing. It's tragic, and it's justifiable.
Yeah, it's the George Zimmerman, he's a prick, for lack of better terms, and I definitely understand what you're saying. It is surprising to me how oftentimes whenever when we discuss religion, when we discuss different beliefs, that quickly Christians will be wrapped up in the same same context and narrative of Westboro Baptist Church. Anytime Westboro does something, it's, well, these Christians are doing this, these Christians are doing that. And I just don't find that in the media, that they're oftentimes, they're quick to, I say this, in the media, they're quick to say, well, that's not a representation of all Islam, or not an accurate representation of all Muslims. But for other religions, other groups, they oftentimes, just throw us all in there. For gun owners, personally, I am pro Second Amendment. Actually, as a matter of fact, there's weapons all around this room. And as far as the saying or whenever everything that comes out, as soon as there's a shooting, it's, oh, was it an AR-15? Was it an assault rifle? Was it this? Was it that? And it's one of those things where we get wrapped up in the depravity of one person, the insane actions of this one person, and it's pretty pathetic. I think that it's great that Mr. Khan actually has called for the denouncing of the radicals and the extremists, and that's one thing that I wish would happen more often, with the NRA, more often with Christians. A lot of church leaders, it's one of those things that kind of just put their nose in the air and like, oh, it's not worth our time. But I don't see a whole lot of openly, I don't say religious Christians, but outspoken Christians saying, hey, we are separating ourselves entirely from Westboro. I bet you a lot of Christians don't even know who they are because they're not paying attention. But that's neither here nor there. But I was going to bring up something, just kind of revert back to the Bernie supporters. I remember whenever the FBI, his name slips my mind now. But, pardon?
Director Comey?
Yes, exactly. There we go. Whenever he was giving his whole speech and saying that, hey, she did this, she mishandled, but it was without the intent, and so I do not suggest pressing charges and moving forward with all of this. I remember feeling incredibly helpless. Okay, yeah, I have plenty of friends that have been in the military, friends that are in the military, and if they mishandled classified information, they would see repercussions of that. And I'm sitting back going, well, because her last name's Clinton, because her husband is Bill Clinton, because of all these factors, nothing is going to happen. And like I said, I felt completely helpless. Like, what can we do? You know, can we sue? Can we do this? Can we sue? You know, pursue legal ramifications for this, and as like in a civil trial or something. Like, who knows? And I was kind of putting myself in the shoes of the actual Bernie supporters, thinking like, did they feel entirely helpless? And if they did, how? My question would be for you: how would you help them realize what's better than voting for Hillary? What is a better alternative to Bernie Sanders at this point in time, since he's completely done at this point?
Since he's sold out. I suggest
that too.
If they're real liberals or they're real socialists, they ought to vote for Green Party candidate Jill Stein, who I met, spent 2 hours with, wonderful lady. We don't agree on politics, and I think that I'm not there yet. I'm a practical person. I'm a realist, and that's what people have to understand. Is I'm not saying this because I want to benefit my party, because I left the Republican Party 2 months in March. But the point is that if you are to the point where you're so frustrated and your party cannot serve you, then you ought to vote your conscience. And that means that they should vote third party. I am so focused on beating Hillary Clinton that I feel compelled to vote for whomever is in second place to her. And that's going to probably likely be because of party infrastructure, spending, advertising, Donald Trump. So I'll vote for Donald Trump. If for some miracle Jill Stein, the brother of Satan, or Gary Johnson, any of those three are polling higher than Donald Trump, then I'll vote for them. What? Stopping Hillary Clinton means that we don't have oligarchs in America. Stopping Hillary Clinton means that we don't have a Wall Street that is going to be running the country for 2 decades. Stopping Hillary Clinton means that we don't have somebody who is going to successfully, not successfully, but mismanage every single conflict that they're engaged in. I'm an interventionist. I'm a war hawk. That's what people would call my particular foreign policy. But Hillary Clinton is that too, just unsuccessful. She's like Bush, but so much worse because she gets none of the blame, so it requires none of the reform. There's no criticism. So she just keeps plundering. The Arab Spring and the fall of Europe and the reset with Russia, which made them more aggressive, and the loss of rights and women and children around the world being beaten, taking away their education, being tortured, is a direct result of Hillary Clinton's State Department, a direct result of her carrying out her foreign policy, which Obama let her do. Hillary Clinton is the worst foreign policy blunder since Jimmy Carter. There is nothing worse in this country than Hillary Clinton and Jimmy Carter on the world stage. I want everyone to understand that she has more of her fingerprints on foreign policy because her State Department was leaking out information on Obama. So Obama didn't want to go into Libya. It wasn't until Hillary Clinton's allies got academia and CNN and the rest of the media networks on top of it, so it forced Obama's hand. A lot of people don't realize this, but that woman's a disaster. And at least Bill Clinton was Bubba, who could be controlled by the generals and swayed by opinion, public opinion. Hillary Clinton is hell-bent on creating a doctrine that has never worked. And most people don't know this about her. But she has failed at literally every single thing she did during the Obama administration. And it's fascinating because her philosophy aligns with mine. She just doesn't know how to carry it out at all.
Yeah,
I forgot your question in all of this.
yeah. Well, the question was, after being heartbroken over the Sanders, sellout.
Yeah.
How
to vote for Jill Stein.
Yeah, Jill Stein. Yeah, I would say that was one of the.
Or they should write Bernie Sanders in. They should do something that feels good with their conscience, but giving Hillary Clinton 8 years.
Easy there, Ted Cruz.
Vote for Pizza Party Ben. I would support that. I would write in that sexy mofo. I think that Bernie Sanders supporters ought to do whatever they think is right in their individual moral conscience.
I got you. Yeah, it's a sad situation to be in there, and like I said, whenever all the stuff was happening with the FBI and Lynch and all of that, I just I was on the phone with you quite often during that time, just saying like, what do we do? Like, there has to be some.
During the what?
Pardon?
During the what?
During the whole FBI investigation, you and I talked, often about it, and there's always these questions like, what do we do from here? How do we move forward? How do we overcome this blatant corruption? And it's just surprising that not even surprising. It's good to feel like we're not alone, because all the Bernie supporters, have suffered the same fate, really, and it's been closer to the heart there, because I'll say if there was ever supporters that followed their leader, I guess, for lack of better terms, they are as passionate as anybody about Bernie Sanders. So the whole burn or bust, it's still going pretty strong. One thing we didn't talk about that's been actually in headlines, for the past several months, if not years, Black Lives Matter. As far as Black Lives Matter, how are they present at the RNC, and how are they present at the DNC? Was it, kind of an equal movement on both ends, or was it something that was, a peaceful protest or anything like that?
They were non-existent at the RNC. If there were, it was a couple of signs, there was a protest that I walked. Me and Mallory and Robin, we were coming back from the Rock Hall of Fame, and that was the largest protest I saw. It was a street walk, and it seemed to me that it was 2,000 people back. Those people never ended up anywhere. They never actually protested at the RNC. It was kind of bizarre. They protested on the street, and we never heard about them. But there was a bunch of white people holding Black Lives Matter signs. That being said, the DNC was totally different. Black Lives Matter was out there, but they only made up, black people, brown-skinned people, only made up about 10 or 15% of this crowd. And I got some great footage. The footage has gone viral from different angles, where the woman's yelling, "I need my white allies to stand in the back." So it was very, very fascinating to see their tactics, and it exposed them. And honestly, Devin, me and my film crew, we went 3 blocks up, and we were going through a black neighborhood, and I couldn't help but think, like, here's a bunch of black people. They're all at home. They're not protesting 3 blocks that way with Black Lives Matter. They don't care. And vice versa. Black Lives Matter leaders don't care about what's happening in these black communities. They kept calling the cops pigs. I never saw one person outside of myself thank the police. Okay, not one. The RNC was totally different. In fact, I'm not trying to give credit to myself, but I wanted to set the tone as a young black man to the police. I wanted to thank them for their efforts, because we were really afraid there was going to be some scary stuff happening at the RNC. And from human to human, I couldn't help but feel that those cops were doing a fantastic duty and call to service by volunteering or participating in that. And so I made sure I told nearly every officer, Secret Service and others, and the ones that were busted in, thank you, because, not because police don't need reform, they do, and not because they're, my overlords, they're not, but they do need appreciation for putting an element of risk in their lives and their families' lives out there, especially under the threat of these violent Marxist George Soros-funded movements. It was very different. Black Lives Matter is uncontrollable. I was that. It is, the left cannot put a lid on it, and what we on the right ought to do is actually encourage it. I mean, if it encourages division, if it encourages the exposure, the hypocrisy of the elites on the left, then we ought to let them have hog wild on it. And it's uncomfortable. It feels like we're losing an intellectual debate, but it's absolutely, I think, the right thing to do.
Yeah, one thing you pointed out, you said that there, it's like 10 to 15% were actually African Americans, but was it headed up by, that white community itself, or were there actual Black Lives Matter leaders there, and did you interact with them?
Leaders leading it, and I assume it was white money funding it. She even at one point says, "What I need from my white allies are your resources." So she wants the white money, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Whites have more wealth in this country than blacks. They, and I don't want to say disproportionate, but they do have a bigger piece of the pie than the population size. Period. Yeah. And I think that population size is a bad way to divide up money anyway. So I'm not suggesting that it would be more fair, more equitable that way. I'm just saying blacks don't have a lot of money in this country, or power, or wealth. And so, but it was very telling about what they wanted. So it was very interesting. I mean, it was led. I mean, this overweight black girl who wasn't wearing a bra, shaved armpits.
Very observant there.
Hippie glasses, and I mean, it's just not reflective of the black community at all. That's what I keep telling people. BLM isn't reflective of black people. So those people who lump in black people with Black Lives Matter are committing an equal sin and an equally intellectually dishonest argument when they're like, well, blacks need to calm down, or blacks need to do this, or blacks need to stop protesting in the streets. Black Lives Matter doesn't the strong, Pew just did a thing, strongly supports only 41%. I mean, a majority of the black population does not strongly support, or they're not in the streets, they're not giving money, they haven't signed up for an email list for BLM. So, like, put that out of your head. Stop saying all blacks, stop saying majority of blacks. It's not. It's radical trust fund kids, or radical middle-class black kids who couldn't get a job in their social justice movement, so they created their own. It's really telling of the left's hypocrisy.
Yeah, I mean, that goes to kind of reiterate what I was saying earlier, how oftentimes that everybody gets thrown into these mass groups, even though it's a small part of that group. So you have Westboro Baptist Church, and then they're like, well, all Christians act this way. All Christians are hateful. The guy from the Baptist Church up in Fort Worth that was saying, I hope those who were shot in Orlando die in the hospital and all of that. He's got a church of like 150 people, if that, and he's far left liberal as far as his theology, and he's not even part of any convention or anything like that, and he's just spewing from the mouth hatred. What I find funny is, I actually came across him before Orlando because I was watching some Louis Farrakhan videos just to kind of I get on this habit of mine is to research something that I've come across. So if I came across Louis Farrakhan, I was like, you know what, I need to figure out who this guy is, where he's from, his history, where he stands, like all these things. So I spent hours upon hours just watching videos, reading up on him and the history. And as far as videos that came up on YouTube, here's this guy, Fort Worth, Texas, just running his mouth about, killing Muslims or doing something just incredibly radical. And it's sad that he throws Christian in there, that he throws Baptist in there. And, oftentimes people will look at those videos and look at the Westboro Baptist Church and, God hates fags and all this kind of stuff and say, well, this is how Christians act. This is the Baptist faith. This is these people who are so conservative and so on the right. This is how they behave and how they support homosexuals, how they actually hate them and want to kill them and they want them to die in the hospital. With Black Lives Matter, I do see, everybody says, well, Black Lives Matter, they're violent. All blacks are like this. They're just going to try to open season on whites and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, there are literally millions of African Americans in the United States. 4 YouTube videos that went viral does not speak for the whole population of African Americans.
Right. Yeah.
But God forbid that logic, comes into the narrative whenever you see little, sound bites on, freaking Facebook. But yeah.
So Devin, wrapping it up, what can, why don't you tell people, in your best estimation, why are we using, he was referring to the Fort Worth pastor. Why don't you tell, one, I want to know what people think of my hair, so please, people, tweet me. This is going to be going lighter every 3 weeks or every month.
Milo Jr.
That's interesting. And what was funny is I almost put out a tweet the other day of making fun of people who are bleaching their hair in the wake of Trump being the nominee, like they're freaks. And I totally didn't think like, I only went to cut today, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, do that to me, because my hairstylist, who's a wonderful friend now, was doing someone else's hair, and I was like, I want that. And people who know me know I'm very impulsive like that. Not going for a lot. But if people want to tweet me what they think of the hair, that would be awesome. But why Dissent? For people who didn't tune in for the start of the show, and what can they expect aside from better production quality? Because it's going to be the background. I won't be sitting on my couch at home.
I like the alligator. That's a nice touch, though.
Isn't it?
I got deer heads and Abe Lincoln. I got a little @ sign that you gave me that was, I thought creative muse is what we're trying to get here. Even though this room is completely white, it reminds me of a hospital. It's really unfortunate.
So what can people expect from Dissent, the brand, and as we grow it, and these Sunday night shows? Someone tweeted to us, we were brave for going against Breitbart.
Who's that? I said, who's that? I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. But just as far as this creation of Dissent, it's really all these kind of the brain behind all of it. Taking people, like you said earlier, it's not a bipartisan. It's just people. People who are not satisfied with the status quo, and we oftentimes get stuck in the narrative of the mainstream media as they control public opinion. And as far as Dissent, it's really just giving the facts, the truth about what's happening. One of the things that we hit on was the DNC, how in the mainstream media everything was butterflies and rainbows, and as far as in real life what was actually happening was a total dissension. So we're here. Oftentimes, whenever I talk to friends and family, they're very quick about looking at the mainstream media or just listening to what politicians have to say or the talking heads, and they run with it. There's no investigation. There's no getting down to the true core of the matter. It's always like, oh, well, I saw this on Fox News, or I saw this on CNN, or I read this in this article from this blog, and it's a lot more than that. And one thing that I personally want to focus on is not necessarily, aiming for conversation about specific politicians and candidates and those things, but actually talk about the ideas and the pros and cons of those ideas and where they come from. Because understanding history and understanding that what we're going through today didn't just happen because of today. What we're going through today happened because 30, 40 years ago something was perpetuated. Somebody decided they wanted to be a feminist movement. They said they want to be a LGBTQ community, and they want to move forward and push these objectives. And I was telling my dad just the other day, how often I come across things from the 70s and the 60s that I thought, oh, this is just something we've been dealing with in the past 20 years. And I like to blame my public school system of, in history, we're only taught up to World War II, and then, the greatest generation is where we ended. They don't talk about the 50s, the 60s, or anything like that, and it might just be my age group. But, understanding that the things we're dealing with are people who've been working at this for decades. And, I got in a little spew on Facebook the other day. A guy was telling me that the liberal media is kind of an oxymoron because, them trying to control how we think is the opposite. He's trying to say classical liberalism, but he's saying it's the opposite of liberalism. And I was like, well, actually, the fact that you think that shows that what they're doing is working.
Right.
And, we live in a society where millennials, they'll get their opinions off of a 30-second clip off of Facebook. They read a lot of BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed, they put out great things about food and, cool little videos here and there. But when it comes to politics, there's nothing good about Trump and there's nothing bad about Hillary. And it is absurd for people to even think, for one moment that it's completely objective. It is some of the most biased, liberal bent crap that is being spewed out of, these social media channels. But, as far as moving forward, hopefully the production will be better. We're trying to work out the kinks here, trying to keep it as most economical as possible. And if you have any questions or just want to chat with us or say anything or want us to address something, feel free to tweet at us. He's at Ali, so that's at ALI. I am at Devin Wills, DEVONWILLS. And, make sure you hashtag Dissent, DISSENT. So if you have any questions, you want to, get on the show as far as us approaching that, feel free to tweet at us. But, Ollie, anything you want to conclude with?
No, I look forward to participating in this with you. I think that this new, I don't want to call it a movement, but let it be one, of dissent is going to be something that requires many leaders. I'm not going to be the face of this. I'm not going to be the Maoist, leader of it. It is going to require a lot of us. It's going to require more than just conservatives, which I happen to be one. And I'm not going to shed all my labels. I am who I am, and I'll come as I am. And I will reach out a hand in tolerance and respect. And I want to work with socialists, anarchists, liberals, progressives. I want to work on anybody who recognizes that we are fundamentally in jeopardy of losing our country, that the elites have rigged the game against us, that cronyism is more tolerated than conservatism or liberalism. And if we can get together and agree on a couple of issues, let's become energy independent. Let's make sure that that poor people have access to quality education. Once we can agree on a couple of set of things, I think that we'll move forward beyond the parties. I think that we're not trying to create a new party. We're not trying to create a new ideology or political movement. What we're trying to do is influence all things. We're trying to break the media, break Wall Street. And anybody who is willing to cooperate with us, will bend them until they cooperate. But if we keep bending and they refuse to cooperate, we will break them. And that's our job as the people, because whether you believe in God or not, the Constitution grants us the rights. We are supreme. And it is our government's job and our media's job to serve us. And we're going to make that happen. I promise you that. Or we're going to die trying.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing about this is, over the past few weeks, some of the things that Ollie has pointed out and we've consistently talked about is, intellectual curiosity or being intellectually curious. And there's a lot of intellectual dishonesty out there. And wow, see, we can't judge on your hair now. It's got the little hat going. But that's a great point of we're not starting necessarily a movement or a new party, but it is challenging the status quo and not being satisfied with just because the talking head said something, just because a politician said something doesn't mean it's right, morally correct, ethical, or even stands with you. Just because they might represent you in Congress, represent your district, they don't represent you at times. And I find that oftentimes even my congressman votes for things that I 100% disagree with and do not stand with. And so definitely, tune back in. We will be back Sunday evening next week. Not sure the exact time, probably somewhere around 8 or 9 Eastern. And you can check out our YouTube channel. This will actually be a link to it. We'll be putting up pictures and artwork and different things like that. And then we'll also be actually making a highlight reel of what we've talked about, just kind of the major points that we want to get across. So instead of people having to listen to 30 minutes to an hour, we can have them listen to about 8 minutes and get what they need. But share us, subscribe, like us, tweet at us. We want to hear your opinions, and we look forward to you guys tuning in later. Ollie, anything else?
Peace out. Let's break the system, y'all.
All right, and I would actually, before we go, I would like to give a quick shout out to my good friend Giuseppe Cucci, who's actually kind of helping me run the tech side behind all of this. He will be throwing together the edited videos and some of the graphic design and such. So he is part of this as well. And about in 2012, we became friends right after the election, and we said, it'd be great to get like-minded individuals, whether they're liberals or conservatives, to get together, agree on one movement, one reason to talk, one reason to change the status quo. And it's funny that here we are, nearly 4 years later, and we're part of a team, and we're excited about what's happening in the future. So everybody,
time.
Pardon?
I said good things take time.
Oh, that's for certain. But all right, thank you once again. Y'all all have a great evening.
Bye.